So I was going to say good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this month's Regional Abatement monthly meeting. Looking forward to a presentation.
Access code or meeting number followed by pound.
So, folks, if you could please mute your phones. That was one thing that I ask off the top, so we can focus on whoever is presenting or talking at any given time. Welcome. Looking forward to a presentation on peers that is being brought to us by our experts here within OASAS. But before we get to that, just a couple of things that I wanted to check in with folks on, and primarily having to do with reporting. So a heads up, we did send the link out to all of you or the designated contact for the Regional Abatement 2025 reporting. So folks should be in receipt of that link. If you have not received anything, or this is new information that it was sent out, please don't hesitate to reach out to the OSF Project Management mailbox. I know that Kristen is often on the phone and in communication with all of you with regard to reporting, so she continues to be a resource for you if you have not yet received the link. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, so we have gotten a couple of questions, as is typical when it's time for us to revisit the report each year. And one of the questions that we received had to do with the OSF regional abatement payments. And we are going to send a communication out with regard to this question, which was, how many payments should I receive or have received for the OSF regional abatement? And just broadly want to say, OASAS's goal is to send you one payment each fiscal year that includes the entirety of the amount that you have available to you in any given fiscal year. We had previously last year, we did have occasion to send two payments. And the reason why that happened was because as payments were coming in, new settlements, and when the state actually receives the receipt for dollars, the timing may be not in sync, perfectly, and which may, and in this case did one time cause us to have dollars come in. We had missed the annual payment, but we wanted to get those dollars out to you. So we made a second payment to be sure that that we were reconciling. Know that that was hopefully a one-time occurrence. Our expectation and in our work with department or the Division of Budget is that we reconcile each year and ensure that the payments go out on an annual basis, and it includes a full reconciliation. So hopefully that's clear enough that the idea is
Mariah and
so we do have folks talking, and I know that not everyone is muted. Mary Alice, I think that may have been you, I heard. So if you can mute your phone.
I'm not muted. Mute your phone. Oh, I'm sorry, because we have the phone. *6. I got.
So again, we will send a communication with all of this information and even some specifics around how you can look for those payments in SFS and identify them as regional abatement payments. So any quick questions on that, or questions with regard to anything else around reporting a regional abatement that folks want to address before we move to the presentation? You can put up your hand, you can put a question in the chat. I'm just going to scan to see if there are any hands coming up. And I don't see any. All right. If you do think of a question in the meantime, please don't hesitate to put it in the with with our having addressed those couple of things, I am going to introduce Mary Alice Ryan and Sylvia Hart, who are our experts with regard to peer services and are here to talk to us about some potential opportunities. Thanks, Mary Alice and Sylvia.
Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. Hold on. Okay, so we were having tech issues, but thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. And basically today we wanted to be able to give you an example of two counties who have been successful in implementing and integrating peer integration services into the county government. So with us today, we have Sarah Bigel from Tioga County and her peer, Portia Moore. I'm sorry, Portia, if I didn't pronounce that correctly. We have Maria Seneca Riley from Onondaga County. I'll let them introduce themselves when they take over. But for the OASAS Peer Integration Unit, if everybody doesn't know, our supervisor is the Director of Bureau of Recovery and Social Needs, is Brenda Harris-Collins. And she couldn't join us today. We're down here in the city for a staff bureau meeting, and Sylvia and I stepped out to do the presentation. So Brenda was unable to do so, but she sends her regards. And then myself, peer integration coordinator, pretty much upstate down. Sylvia does a lot of the downstate, and we just anything to do with peers, we're here, and we integrate, we implement, we give TA, we support the workforce. We work on all different aspects of peer support services. Lately, we've been talking about standardization and documentation of those different processes. Yes, Sylvia, I'm sorry. Thank you for pulling up the PowerPoint. You can move on to the introduction page. And if anyone here, and I know most of you from I know some of you from when I used to work with the counties in the day. But that's why it's really good for me to be here today. And if anyone is ever looking for specific technical assistance, it's peer.integration@oasas.ny.gov. And can everyone see the slides? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Go ahead, Sylvia. You can move to what are peer support services. And then basically, this is basic, but just to give you a little tickler for today, peer support services are non-clinical workers with lived experience in SUD. And just as an aside, if everyone's familiar with the Certified Recovery Peer Advocate certification, lived experience is not required, but I can guess there's about 92% of those Sherpas have lived experience. They use their knowledge, and I should really say they use their heart and their soul to support a person's recovery plan, and it's heart to heart, and they do that day in and day out. Professional peer workers, they offer acceptance, understanding, validation, and hope. They're right there in the trenches with the participant who they're serving, and whatever is needed. There's all different types of peer support, and there are all different types of modalities, which most of you on this call are already aware of. The peer support services, they enhance treatment, so they're not there as competition. They're there to support treatment and to work hand in hand with those clinicians. It's participant-centered, and it's based on lived experience. Next slide. Peers throughout New York State, as I was mentioning, so we're everywhere. Peers are exploding. They have been exploding. They even exploded during COVID, and it was mainly online. But we've expanded in implementation across the continuum of care. They're in prevention programs, all types of modalities for treatment programs, harm reduction, and recovery. They're also, they do a lot of street outreach. They're in libraries, they're in homeless shelters, they're in county governments, they're everywhere. Then we're working in tandem with the Division of Criminal Justice, and we're working on their SERPAs in every county jail. They're in treatment courts and they're in overdose intervention courts, and that's a huge project we've been working on with the Office of Court Services and the Criminal Justice Division, and we're excited to be working on that. Law enforcement, we even have peers riding in the patrol cars and working in the precincts. And then everyone probably knows Rensselaer County is familiar with the peer engagement specialist, where their specialist is hospitals and primary care. Defining the peer role, like I said, I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but they're a role model, they're an educator, they're a resource navigator, they're an advocate, outreach worker, and pretty much there's a broad spectrum of functions. Next slide. Peer support's not. It's not focuses on the diagnosis or the deficit. It's not about helping in a hierarchical way. So the way it was best explained to me when I first got into peer integration was that peer is, they kind of lightly have their hand on the steering wheel and the participant is driving the car. The peer is not turning the wheel in any way. They're just guiding, they're just there to give support, and whatever pathway the individual chooses, the peer supports it, which peers need a lot of training around that, because that can be challenging at times, especially if the pathway doesn't align with their lived experience. But we have found that the peers have been phenomenal in being able to adjust to different situations. They're not a counselor, and they don't pressure people to comply with treatment. They're just there to give them options and opportunities. They're not there to monitor the behavior. They can role model the behavior, but they're not there to monitor the behavior. And they're not there to do case management, care coordination, or any of those other roles that come up. They're also not there to do toxicology screens or take out the garbage. They're really there to function in a supportive role. So now, go next slide. I'd like to turn it over to Onondaga County, and that would be Mariah. And Mariah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself so I don't have to mispronounce your last name.
Thank you, Mary Alice. I'm Mariah Senecal-Riley. I'm the Director of Substance Use Initiatives with the Onondaga County Health Department. We are a little bit unique in that we have a whole suite of substance use services provided directly by the health department. With our peer program, it was previously a contracted program that we chose to bring in-house. It made a lot of sense to partner it with our existing substance use services. For like some practical considerations for anybody who might like to add peers to their staff, we did create a civil service title, and that was as challenging as you might imagine. There was a lot of discussion around writing the title in a way that it isn't requiring lived experience, because for a personnel staff, that is a hard concept to grasp, but to still appropriately outline what the job duties would be. That took a little bit, but we worked really hard to make it not a tested position as well. Again, lived experience is not something that you can really test on. So it is not a tested position. And we also kept the qualifications for that pretty broad. It does not require SERPA. We do encourage our folks to get it within a year of joining staff. Some other practical things to consider are benefit timing. Previously, Onondaga County, you had to wait 3 months before you got any health insurance, and as well sick time to use. We're still working on the sick time part of it, but we've now changed the timing of the benefits to the first of the month after you start. So we always try to start people as late into a month as possible, so they have the shortest gap in health insurance that we can manage, because we don't want people's like any supports that they're already involved in to lapse because of any benefit challenges. Other things, we really have valued face-to-face interview as we're hiring. It's been very useful for us to bring people in so they can see our operation. There's a wide range of pathways with recovery, and our services are very heavily harm reduction focused. So having folks come in to meet our staff and see the work that we do has been really important to make sure that it's a good fit for someone. Other things that we've prioritized are making sure that we pay for parking, that there's mileage, that there is opportunities for like community building within our division, as well as recent purchases of division vehicles to make it easier for folks as they transport people. So stay on the slide. So some challenges that we encountered as we have gone through this. As we all know, bureaucracy can be a little bit hard. For us, we particularly around like time off and self-care for our peer staff, we've had to have some kind of creative workarounds in making sure that people have the resources that they need as soon as they start, as opposed to however long our time takes to get our time off or our health insurance. With that, we have worked really hard to incorporate our peer staff into our entire division. Although they serve a specific function, they are also able to participate in our other programs like our syringe services program and doing community events. And with that comes the opportunity to earn some time off. So that's a very purposeful build-in around that. As Mary Alice mentioned, this work is highly personal. There's a lot of opportunity for boundary issues. We sometimes refer to our positions as professional friends. So we work really hard with our staff to make sure that they're really staying within like the roadmap of peer services and not straying outside of that for case management or care management or anything that is not quite appropriate for strong boundaries. Because this is such a new position for our county, there is a misunderstanding of what the peers do. So beyond what, like kind of limiting what our staff do with their boundaries for how they support people, we've also had to lay some pretty strong boundaries with other agencies and other programs to not try and put the peers into roles that are not appropriate for what they do. So we've had to do a lot of education around like what actual peers do, and like it's not a case management services. Additionally, there's not a great clear promotional path right now. That is something that we're working on. We'd like to eventually develop like a peer specialist 2 position, but right now there's currently not a great trajectory, but it is something we're working on. I think the last thing for challenges is, and I don't think this is unique to us as a county, but any organization that has peers, there's not a great process for supporting staff if it ever happens that they return to use. That is something that we obviously is very unique to the individual, but there's not a roadmap for that. So if that were to occur, we would have to move very carefully through that. Some successes with this: our presence has expanded very drastically throughout the community. My staff are at many drop-in locations. They do work with our syringe services. We have 7 locations, and those are at like shelters. We have staff in our drug courts, our problem-solving courts. We have peers who are a part of a substance use crisis team. So we are everywhere. 12 of our 17 staff are people with lived experience. So that's been something we've really prioritized, and you can see in the number of engagements that we have with clients. That's been all the difference in how we operate. Other successes, obviously there's some credibility with clientele. That's been deeply helpful especially as we navigate being a syringe services program as a county. Sometimes it's hard for clients sometimes to tell a difference between agencies. So having our peer staff, and a lot of the times they have worked other places, or the people that we serve are people that they know. So it's really helped to build our reputation and our credibility with the people that we serve. Next slide. So in practice, we make sure that they're supervised by someone with lived experience. We're in the process of getting our supervisor trained in the peer supervision course. We do have an EAP program through the county that we promote to our staff, but more intensely, we do have a contracted mental health professional available for situations for staff that are hard that they encounter in the field. I know we've had her come in when we've had a client pass away that many of us knew. So that's been really helpful. Like I said, they're all over the community. They function across many different settings. And that's been very helpful to us as a division. But also we've heard from the organizations themselves. It's been really great. Again, I encourage, if you do this, please build in some opportunities to earn time off. That flexibility that gives is really important. As you recruit, I would encourage you to really take the time to do in-person interviews. Sometimes the resumes that we get in aren't really clear on what experience the person has, but then when we meet them, we're able to learn a lot more about their story and experience. That's all for me.
Thank you, Mariah. And now we will hear from Tioga County. Sarah?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ellis. So my name is Sarah Beagle. I'm the newly appointed DCS in Tioga County. Tioga County has 2 licensed clinics. We have an OASAS and an OMH clinic that are co-located in one location. I was in the deputy role when we went through this process, so I'm going to try to remember it to the best of my ability. In 2019, our DCS requested the creation of a new civil service position, the Certified Recovery Peer Advocate. That request came as a result of the revised regulation requirements that came out in May of 2019, as listed there in 822. The DCS, we worked with the personnel officer to create the job description. We presented that request to the legislature for approval, and that was approved. Once approved, we were able to work closely with OASAS on preparing the department for peer integration and into the outpatient program. We had Mary Ellis actually specifically come in and work with our team to have trainings, integrate with staff, talk about expectations, whether or not we were ready to take that on. Next slide, please. Some of the successes and challenges that we've had here, we were able to create an appropriate job description that captured everything outlined in the regulations. I will echo a lot of what Mariah said, also applies to us when you're dealing with civil service. It's pretty standard. The approval from the legislature in this county is usually dependent on cost to the county taxpayer. So in keeping that in mind, we presented it as the peer would be able to bill for services. And at some point, the rates were adjusted and improved to make the position much more sustainable. A challenge in finding and hiring qualified peers, it can be difficult. I would also echo having the in-person interviews is really important. You know, we did a lot of hiring through Indeed or advertising, and it can be difficult, you know, in combing through the resumes to find out if they're actually qualified or, you know, if they really will be a good fit for the role. Our candidate was a consumer on our incident review committee prior to starting, so they were already known to the agency and were already certified. I definitely want to emphasize though that, you know, the person that you choose to do the job, they really have to be a good fit for that position in order for it to work out for everyone. So we hired our SERPA in 2020, April, right during COVID. So that was also challenging for us. I believe the guidance allowed the peer to use telehealth functioning, which we did when we were first starting out. And that seemed to work out, and we gradually shifted into community treatment, not treatment, support. It can also be challenging to integrate a peer into the clinic setting. So I think it's just important to identify what the roles are, the scope of practice, managing expectations of staff, including information sharing rules. I remember initially staff were asking if, you know, if the peer can tell them if their client is using or, you know, like what they're up to. And so, you know, we had to talk with staff and the peer about, you know, what was appropriate to share, and they're not there to necessarily be a tattletale or, you know, undermine the client's process. Another success is that, you know, it did end up increasing our client engagement and our census, increased community connectedness, and that would be with all other county departments, other county agencies. People have now become aware of who our peer is and, you know, call specifically requesting her. I think you have to go back one slide. So, that's been really beneficial for us overall.
We're bouncing around this PowerPoint here.
That's okay.
No worries.
Was there a question?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat about salary range for paying the peers. I was just wondering if you and Mariah would be able to answer that.
I can. I'll get to that. I actually have my peer with us, so I don't have the salary written in front of us, but I know she'll be able to tell us.
Okay.
So the clinical program director in our agency is the one who's trained to supervise the peer. There's a specific OASAS peer supervision training that they have to undergo. So we are looking to have more supervised trained in that. Our peer is now also actually trained in that, which I think would be really beneficial in supervising any new oncoming peers. The SERPA does receive routine weekly supervision, but they also have constant connection to us via phone or in person. They can call the clinical director, they can call me, they can call, you know, any of the supervisory staff working because they're out in the field, and, you know, we just want to make sure that they have what they need. All of the progress notes are co-signed by a supervisor. They do attend the weekly interdisciplinary staff meeting. I know that was a question in the very beginning when we were getting started. It has worked out to be very beneficial on our end. It really helped to incorporate her into being a member of the team with the clinical staff and, you know, enhance those working relationships. The county does send the SERPA to appropriate trainings that would be beneficial to help with covering costs and maintaining the credential. That can be a challenge for SERPAs because of their salary, because of how many continuing education credits they have to take, because many of them have to be in person, it can be costly for them. So, you know, the fact that we have a county car that they can use, that, you know, we can pay for some of those cost to offset that for them is helpful. And they do work across settings within the county. They're a member of our drug court team. They have a close connection with the probation department, with the courts, with law enforcement. They are still a member of our incident review committee. They're part of our local coalitions, and they work closely with many other substance use providers in and outside of the county, as well as their peers. Next slide. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to introduce our peer, Portia Moore, and I will let her talk about strategies for recruiting, training, and retention, because she'd be able to speak best that. I think she can also mention the salary.
Hi, everybody. I'm Portia. So I am the peer that Sarah's been talking about. I've worked for the county since April of 2020. I started out during COVID, so the world was kind of upside down and we were kind of learning together as we went. But to kind of mirror some of the things that she was saying, when the county first created the position, it took a little while to get the civil service test done. Like, I think I was on probation for like a few years or whatever until I could take the test, because they weren't quite sure like what that test was going to look like. My salary is like 33,800, I believe. That's like 20 something an hour. And I do get, full health benefits, paid time off, things of that nature. And in the beginning, I didn't, I didn't really understand how much it was going to be to like keep up with my certifications and things, to pay for all of that. So I'm fortunate that I've been able to not only utilize OASAS has a lot of opportunities for scholarships to help pay to go to different conferences and stuff for continuing education, but my agency is assisted. I do feel like from this slide that the having the stability of the civil service title is important. As a peer professional, a lot of times the stigma can kind of make you feel a little less than, like you're not considered a professional in the field or things of that nature. So even just having that behind me makes me feel, like part of a team and a professional, somebody that I've worked hard for. And having that living wage is everything, especially because, a lot of times we're kind of going over and beyond for the clients and, providing different things and going, to get coffee, like, things like that can get a little expensive and, just to offset some of those costs. Having the SERPA employed by the clinic helps integrate them into the interdisciplinary team. I attend every staff meeting that we have, which has been really beneficial for me, not only because we're able to work as a team together, but I know what's going on with the clients in treatment. And that's a good place for me to maintain my boundaries with the clinical staff, because, they tell me things, and I can be there to advocate for the client, and just not overshare, obviously, things that shouldn't be shared. And it keeps that connection with me and the people I work with. So I think that's helpful. Having the SERPA employed by the clinic, I already read that. SERPA has use of the county vehicle. Yep, I've touched on that. It's really, really beneficial if you're going to integrate a peer for them to have a vehicle. In the beginning, I drove my personal car a lot, and that was not beneficial. The miles that I put on it, the wear and tear, my personal belongings that are in my vehicle, I would have to like move them every day and things like that. And again, it just keeps that professional line and boundary there with the client that you're serving. And yeah, integrating to be part of the member of the team, I really do feel as if, I'm integrated into our staff, as a team member. And I've already touched on, the budget to include, trainings and maintaining those credentials. And honestly, the continuing education is so beneficial to me and my licenses, and to keep my certifications, because it really it keeps me up to date with like ethics and with all of the various things that I use on a daily basis. Motivational interviewing, the stages of change, everything like that. And like Sarah had said, and Mariah, I believe, we were talking about how, if the peer has that peer certification to supervise, it is really, really it's a benefit, because it like kind of gives you that mindset of like what your role is and what it isn't. And it's constantly like reminding you of that. And again, yeah, just community connection. I work in everything from hospitals to the jails to probation. I go to several court, dates. I will say our local law enforcement respects me and treats me well. Our DA does, our ADA. And I really think that that's because my agency has always like placed me as such an important person on the team. And so if you do, have a SERPA, join and you want to integrate them in, I think that that part is just, extremely important.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. Sarah, anything else before we turn over to Sylvia?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I looked up the 2026 salary, and it looks like it's starting at 38,859 this year,
Okay,
and that's full
thank
time.
you.
We're 35 hours a week, so if that helps.
I looked up
Thank you.
ours as well, and the range is, it starts at 49,805. And with the steps for 2026, the Z step is 54,843.
Great. Thank you, Mariah. And Sylvia was just going to wrap it up real quick, and then we can open it up for questions for Mariah and Sarah and the peer if you want. So Sylvia's just going to touch on a couple important things that were already touched on, but just to reinforce. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sylvia Hart. I work with OASAS, doing everything from integrating peers. And so what I'm going to talk about is the professional peer supervision. And as the ladies just explained, the supervision is very, very important. And the supervisor should be doing supervision. They should have that 20-hour training. OASAS highly suggests that that happens. And it gives you that with the SUD competency, Appendix 3. They also have a good information on that on the TIP 64 book, which is right here in front of you guys. They also have the SUD Principle of Care with advocacy, boundaries, coaching, and motivational interview. And these are very good techniques to use when supervising a peer to help the peer stay in their role, to understand for all staff to stay in their role and learn what the peer actually does. The New York Certification Board, the Code of Ethics and the Conduct and Disciplinary Procedures. They have great information on the ethics standards that are non-negotiable. They honor the dignity of each person. They maintain accuracy and complete documentation. They also protect confidentiality of all records and information. They do not exploit or take advantage of others. It's very important that the peers know this. The peer have no substance use or legal or illegal with those you serve. When you're taking a person out or you're escorting them someplace, not to use illegal drugs and, to maintain no sexual or intimate relationship with those you're serving. These are the same type of ethical guidelines that are with clinical staff that are with professional peers. They have these same ethical boundaries, but we specifically ensure that the peer professional have the trainings on these, because sometimes the peer also have been friends with people before they came. They may see someone they know and they might be this taking them out on escorts. So they have to be careful to make sure they maintain these boundaries. And professional peer wellness. I like this one because if the peer's not taking care of themselves, and this also goes with clinical staff, how you're going to assist others. The whole person balance across physical, emotional, psychological, social, intellectual, and spiritual health is very, very important. We have to support and oversee sense of well-being and fulfillment. We act long life process, not on a one-time achievement. This is like ongoing, to also do this on an ongoing basis. be involved awareness of choice and priorities. And it also requires intentional decision in and out of work to maintain wellness. Mary.
Thank you, Sylvia. I think that's it. So I don't know if we can open it up for questions, or if Mariah, Sarah, I don't know if you wanted to add anything additional, or if there's any questions, Lucia.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Alice. So I did want to kind of thank you very much for everyone who presented. Truly appreciate you guys sharing your experience with us. We actually, in grants management and special projects, just had the peer, the Mary Alice and Sylvia and Brenda give us a presentation. So you might, maybe you're sitting there like, why did they choose a regional abatement meeting to have us share counties who are utilizing peers? A couple reasons. So, you know, under the opioid settlement fund, you might have noticed a lot of our RFAs have some indication there of hiring a peer, that we expect that the project will have a peer as part of the staff. And we, OASAS, Brenda's unit, we're constantly being asked and told of the value of peers when a peer works someplace, in a jail, in a court, in a treatment setting. When is the peer available? How can I get the peer? Can the peer come to my court? Can the peer? So I want to emphasize a couple of things, right, which were touched on. We need to think of it, this is not a hierarchy of a workplace setting. This is a parallel role, right? It's a parallel role, and you really want to set those folks up, right, to recruit, train, retain. So keep them there, have them be seen as equals, and really a highly contributing member of the team, because we know that they're in high demand. Because they're in high demand, our workforce unit is doing a lot of work around some of the things that Portia touched on, the scholarship programs, making sure that folks, peers are not in a bind paying for recertification, right? So Learning Thursdays, I believe, is going to include peer renewal credits and things that you can do at no or low cost. We do not want any peer paying for things right now. We have a super robust scholarship program. I'm going to throw those links in the chat. Although I did see Suzanne was on there and she loves to talk about scholarship programs, so maybe she can throw it in the chat for me. So why talk to the LGUs about this, right? Well, your regional abatement dollars, right, and your restricted direct share dollars, those are up to you. We're not telling you what to do with them. But where counties are doing some really innovative, exciting stuff and getting peers into their system, right? We know that this funding is not here forever. It is an infusion, it's a start, it's the beginning of something that we would hope maybe a county might maintain. And that sort of sets up a great use of your regional abatement dollar or your restricted direct share dollar to get that rolling while you figure out as a county how to maintain that. And it doesn't have to all come from, you know, an LGU who is a provider, right? Like if you have courts asking you for the peers service, then, you know, where is that budget? Where is, you know, because if the peer becomes part of the county system, that could be something maintained by, you know, multiple pathways. So that's why we're sharing all this information with you, just to kind of plant some seeds. The other thing that I'm going to share in the chat is this. No, I did that wrong. Hold on. I'm going to share it to everyone. This is the New York State Department of Labor job board, and our workforce development unit. Many of you know Julia Fesco. She's working really hard on these workforce initiatives, and if you could, if and whenever you have something to post, if you could utilize that. So posting for a SERPA, a KSAC, you know, I heard mention that folks were using Indeed, but what I'll say is we are driving every participant and provider in the scholarship program to use this job board. And that job board does a couple of things, I think, for the community as a whole, right? It does allow seekers and those who are looking to hire more of a one-stop shop in sort of a specialized area. But the other thing is it kind of lets you see what is the market. I'm not ashamed to say, Mariah, several times, like when postings are posted in Onondaga County, sometimes we have our downstate folks or our New York City folks posting something less than what's being offered in Onondaga County. So I can show that to them and just say, hey, peers are a market. They are a trained workforce. And so we have to start considering our investment in them. And I think if you invest in them from the beginning, they will stay and learn and take those opportunities. So I didn't see, maybe Suzanne hopped off. I'm just going to pull up the scholarship opportunities. And I do want to mention that the scholarships are in the next sort of round of these programs, those recertification things will be scholarships, whereas the scope was a little bit more narrow this go around and was focused on getting new people into the pipeline, but we're happy that we're going to be able to support those who are renewing and things of that nature. So with that being said, I guess I'll open it back up to the floor if there's any questions about peers, the presentation, and why I'm planting seeds about your direct share payments, your regional abatement payments. Or it's 2:50 on a Friday and it feels like summertime outside. Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
Well, now I feel like the bad guy holding us all in
No,
here.
no worries.
So I just wanted to say thank you to you, Lucia, for bringing this to the meeting. This is an incredibly important topic that we are certainly passionate about here in Putnam County. With my experience, our peers are the most effective and the most reliable members of the team that I work with by far. And I want to thank you in the presentation for highlighting the importance of peer supervision training. That's something that we often lack here in Putnam and something that we are always having to advocate for. And also the importance of the professional wellness for our peer workforce. At the risk of being inflammatory, and hopefully I have some support behind this, but $33,000 and for the peer that shared that, thank you. But $38,000 as the state standard still does not seem like what I would label as a livable wage, nor does it seem like what I would think would be appropriate compensation for the roles and skills being demonstrated by our peer workforce. So I'm wondering if any of the administrative agencies on this call might speak to actions that are being taken to try and increase wages for our peer recovery workforce.
There is a question in here too about billing to augment sustainability. So I don't know, Connie, did you see if Debbie was on? I don't want to incorrectly speak to the billable piece, but I do know some work is being done on billing rates for peers. I do understand it's still below.
Yeah, actually the rates just increased slightly. They increased, and then they are definitely working on to keep them sustainable. And then, as I mentioned, there hopefully will be able to do what OMH is doing, where peers can bill for a group, and then also have peers being supervised by peer supervisors being able to bill. But that's from my side, from our side. Sorry.
Oh, thanks, Mary Alice.
Yep.
I'll just say that I agree. I don't think that the 38,000 is, a high enough wage for what the peers do. I will say in Tioga, we have a 35-hour work week, so that I know that when they're coming up with the salary range, they do take that into consideration. And we have been talking about exploring some sort of pathway to promotion, similar to what Mariah was talking about. Like, she has the peer supervisor training. and the experience now of being a peer, it only makes sense to me that, you know, she could step into more of a supervisor role and begin increasing that salary.
Yeah. And then another question in the chat was, were wages computed by the county civil service based on education achieved?
I don't think it was based on education level because I don't know that that's necessarily a requirement in there. You know, and I'm not really sure what comparisons they made. Like I said, they did this back in 2020. I'm not sure all of the players are the same, you know, that are in those roles. So I would have to explore that.
Yeah, I think some things that you know, Portia was kind of getting at that a county offers, which are not measured in dollars, is that stability, a retirement, paid time off, and things of that nature. That being said, I would agree. I would want to. I think we have to do a good job in terms of advocating, explaining to folks what a peer does, and that.
How was the county presentation?
We mute.
Just 1 second. Oh, I'm sorry.
I do think in WebEx your space bar unmutes you or mutes you when you don't realize. But that Sue's unmuted again. If we could get just to help people understand, right? Because it isn't clinical and it's very different from a clinical role. That, you know, it's emotionally taxing and draining. A lot of the sharing and the high need for self-care. So I do think we need to do, we meaning folks who would be advocating for this kind of position, really need to do the homework and the education to get the wage to where it should be, because you all know the benefit that they bring and what is involved, and that it's a ton of work. And I'm glad to hear actually that it's a 35-hour work week, right, to sort of leave room for some of those other things. But yeah, I think we need to really try to take care of them. So Taylor, yes, please come off mute and share Erie County's process to increase peers.
Yes, thank you. So Erie County, we surprisingly, neither the health department or our probation department, who both have peers, do not bill. But we do have peers that function in both health and probation. We recently, and I believe it was for the fiscal year of 2025, increased our peers to job groups. They were a 3, and I believe that they are a 5 right now. What that process looked in, I mean, I know that probably means nothing to a lot of you all, but we were able to increase them a good amount, still probably not where they should be, but it is a lot better because we did have a lot of folks on the high end, and then obviously our peers were on the lowest end of that particular office. So what our process looked like is we had to justify that within our department. Since my office had the funding, the settlement funds, we were able to increase it for all of our peers across the county within county government. But we basically justified that through the office. That traveled to our budget office, who approved it. Our county executive would have to sign off on it. And then that ended up going to our legislatures for approval. That did happen during our budget prep time. So if it happened outside of budget prep, we still would have had to travel through those approvals, and it would have been a resolution, a standalone resolution. But that's just our process, and we were successful. And it is definitely something that, you know, the promotional paths are something we need to still consider here.
I just want to comment quick. We also did it as part of our budget process. For anybody who does not have peers currently in your workforce and you're adding them in as a new title, my advice is to shoot very high, especially because it was such a novel position to our personnel department. They really relied on us for the job description and to communicate the value of it. I know that's not the same everywhere, but I would say leverage your own expert status there, because what they had initially proposed was very far from this.
And we were able to also create our job descriptions, and that's something that we've tossed around, is changing a lot of our peer staff titles from peers to outreach workers, because that really is more in alignment of what our peers in health particularly do, which would also allow for a salary increase. So I think it's also, good to see where you are and constantly monitor. And hopefully that, like that change for us, hopefully might be a new title change, prioritizing peers, but with lived experience.
All right. So thank you. I'm looking at the time. It's 2:58. So I appreciate not only the presentation, so thank you for that, but also the questions, right? And the contemplation. And I do always appreciate with this group that folks just jump in and start sharing experiences and are really great at supporting each other and making suggestions from, their own experience. So I think that certainly if questions percolate after this, don't hesitate to reach out. We will be sure to put you in touch with our folks here at OASAS, or if you want to reach out to one of your fellow county presenters about their experience. Taylor, too, thanks for sharing and talking about the process. That folks feel free to do that. We will share the PowerPoint presentation after this meeting, so you'll have it for reference. And at 2:59 on a Friday, a sunny Friday, mind you, a sunny, warm-ish Friday, like it's spring finally here. I want to thank y'all for taking this afternoon and look forward to next month. And I hope you have a great weekend. Here, everybody.